Honor is in the heart, not the name. No more running.
Hey everyone, this is Scrap Computer here. This guide's going to cover and explain the mid/top laner Yasuo. First up, the basic pretexts. Auto attack range 175. Main damage orientation is AD. Resource 0, he only has cooldowns. Main role is mid and top lane. This guide will be more orientated and leaning largely towards mid lane Yasuo, as he is a lot more common, but this guide will still very easily be utilised for top lane Yasuo. Yasuo's tips, runes, masteries are very static on Yasuo regardless of where he plays. Overall skill cap very high. Before I get into this guide, I heavily advise you watch my mid laner guide part 1, which is on my YouTube. It basically explains how to play the mid lane in a stance based concept. I will be using this concept throughout this guide, so you're not going to understand fully what I'm doing until you watch that guide. I heavily advise you watch it before you watch the Yasuo guide. You have to know what you're doing in the mid lane before you start teaching yourself an instance of the mid lane, which is a mid lane champion. At the end of this guide I will be covering playstyles and stance. I just wanted everyone to watch it as a prerequisite before getting into mid lane. For now, that's it for the pretext, and let's get into the meat of the guide. Runes. Here's Yasuo's main rune setup list. It's not very variant. Most Yasuos, if not all, will pick something around this. The only notable thing you can switch out is the 9 glyphs of magic resist. You can put these for skilling magic resist glyphs if you're not versus an AP laner. And the 3 quints of attack damage can be switched with 3 quints of attack speed, also 3 quints of movement speed, depending on how you play. But for the most part, this is generally the rune setup you should be running. Masteries. For masteries that are on 2190 as seen below, not too much notable, very static for an AD caster, you can see this below. Summoner spells. These are the available summoner spells on Yasuo. You're going to want to pick up Flash for its mobility, pretty much very standard in most mid laners. From here pick up Heal or Barrier for a middle ground defensive / combat spell if you're kind of mid ground against your opponent, so if you could die, pick this up, and if it's going to be a close fight. You may also want to pick Teleport with Yasuo, as he kind of has a very weak start game lane phase, so you can get back or even gank with it. Lastly, generally a lot of Yasuos are going to pick up Ignite to provide Yasuo with some heavy kill potential early game. Yasuo is deceptively strong. He's weak to poke, but if you can get all in and get that Ignite off, it can lead to a free kill. Personally, I do advise Flash, Heal, Barrier, or Ignite. I generally don't advise Teleport, but of course it's all up to you. I just wanted to keep the options open. Mid laners to pick Yasuo versus. These are lanes that Yasuo will generally have a decent to strong advantage versus, and for the most part you should win, although I notice you can still lose. The matchup conceptually is in your favour, but of course this isn't a free victory in any way. Vel'Koz. This guy is basically fully skillshot orientated. Yasuo's mobility can easily avoid most of his abilities. On top of this, your wall can block pretty much all of his kit, and lastly he's immobile and very squishy early game, so Yasuo, if he jumps on him, he's pretty much dead 100%. Gragas. Your wall can block half of his kit. In addition, Gragas likes to get in close to his enemy's face. Yasuo doesn't mind this, as he has a low range kit. Basically, this will force him to keep his distance and not be able to use body slam or all in, or his W. Again, and lastly, you can block that ultimate, which is pretty much a, no pun intended, really ultimate counter. Lux. You're too mobile in the laning phase for her to hit you. On top of that, you can block a large portion of her kit, and only note is you cannot block her ultimate. Twisted Fate. TF is completely combo based and projectile based. Because of this, you can block pretty much every combo with your W and make him basically useless if you use your wall in a timely fashion. Yasuo can also punish TF's weak and squishy laning phase by being able to all in him with his heavy mobility with a single missed gold card. Veigar. You can block nearly all of this guy's kit, which is pretty huge. And on top of this, early game he's very weak, so you can all in him and get a pretty easy kill. Orianna. You can easily avoid the ball in lane with your heavy mobility, and more importantly than this, you can use your wall to stop her repositioning the ball, making her effectively useless if done correctly. Anivia. The bird is extremely weak start game, and you can easily kill her or at least push her out of lane. Your mobility and your all-in potential should easily trump anything she can throw at you. Also, you can avoid all of her abilities if she does throw things at you, and stop her E 100% chill all of the time with every single wall. Karthus. This guy won't be able to land any Qs with your heavy mobility, and you can all in this guy early or at least shove him out of lane. Lastly, your passive can save you from his ultimate if you're kind of lucky and keep on running. Basically, anyone who's projectile or skill shot orientated or has large amount of skill shots, your mobility kind of can make up for this. So basically, projectiles or hard to land skill shots. Both of these things are generally cannon fodder for Yasuo. Lanes to avoid. Yasuo can beat these lanes, it's just going to be a little less likely because of a conceptual counter, or just generally the champion is designed to defeat you in some way, shape or form. So let's get into it. Malzahar. You can't block literally any of his abilities with your wall. His abilities are very easy to harass you down, and of course when you try and lock him down, he'll use his ultimate for an easy all-in, and basically it makes him extremely scary. He can burst you down, he has nothing to block, and his skill shots are, a lot of them are just on-hit clicks and zone areas, which you can't really avoid too easily. In addition, Malzahar also tends to build quite tanky, meaning even bursting him down is an issue. Swain. This guy is basically one ability you can block. Other than that, he is tanky as hell, and he can all-in you very easily and kite you out. He can survive that burst. If you can't burst him down and you can't all-in him, he becomes quite problematic. Akali. Akali is more upfront damage than you. She can kill you at level 6 with her massive power spike, assuming she doesn't get knocked up. No pun intended. Not sure. She also has a very low cooldown Q, which can harass you and keep you down pretty easily. Your mobility can't help versus her either, as she is arguably even more mobile than yourself, as she doesn't require minions to jump to. Talon. This guy has massive burst damage that doesn't require a knock-up, so basically he's got the trump on you at level 6. In addition, your wall basically can't block anything, as his gap closer can get beyond it and then just screw you over essentially. Since he has some mobility, it makes it very hard to outplay him, and his upfront damage is in your face, so you can't avoid anything. A very difficult lane. Ixaroth. Sparky Boom Man. Yes, that is an Avatar reference. His Q, W and ultimate all go over your wall, only his E is blocked. His massive range also means you'll never get close enough to actually all-in this guy or even harass him. He can sit back and do some combustion bending and wreck the hell out of you a mile away. Yasuo can beat Ixaroth if he gets in close enough, but Ixaroth's massive range makes him virtually unstoppable if played correctly versus a low range Yasuo. Syndra. Syndra is very powerful start game. She's a pretty good lane bully. Her main harassment tool Q can't be blocked, and her W also can go over the wall. She can also wilt you down very easily and kind of just burst you down with essentially no real hassle. She is generally too strong start game for Yasuo to really deal with. Cassiopeia. Again, she can bully the crap out of Yasuo early game. She is one of the most powerful start game champions, and she can crush Yasuo so heavily in between his wall casts. Her Q and ultimate also go over that wall, which means you're going to have a lot of trouble literally facing the Cassiopeia. Annie. The only spell you can block is her Q, which a lot of people don't know. Annie's W are instantaneous casts, which basically mean the burst can go through the wall, and the upfront damage of Annie's W and ultimate can easily burst down a very squishy Yasuo. Yasuo is too squishy and can be lane bullied heavily by a heavy harass based Annie. Finally, Annie's auto attack range, Q and burst rotation generally will leave most Yasuos pretty much incapable of doing anything throughout the laning phase. Riven, you can only block her execute. Not that this matters. You need to go in as Yasuo. You know, you have low range, so when you go in versus another low range enemy with similar mobility, higher burst, higher all-in potential, it's not pretty. Avoid this lane pretty much. She can all-in you anytime she wants, and there's nothing you can do about it. Ziggs. You can block this guy's abilities, of course, but he pushes you under turret with his low cooldown abilities, and he can bait your W very easily. His low cooldowns basically mean he'll harass you out of lane. He also has a massive range in most of his abilities, and he doesn't have to face you directly. He can sit back a mile, much like Ixaroth. If played right, and if he just sits back and just harasses you and pushes waves, he's impossible to kill, and he'll not leave any openings to kind of get any advantageous position out of it. Lissandra. Her W and ultimate can go over your wall. She can lock down Yasuo anytime he comes near with this. Lissandra also has a low cooldown Q, which can mean make it very difficult and block with your W, and she'll wilt you down very easily. Anytime you try and all-in her, Kitla is mainly designed around kiting you, so if you get in within auto attack range, she's just going to W, Q you, and then just auto attack the hell out of you. Lastly, if she doesn't want to even have a look at you, she can just instantly push waves and keep you under turret all game if she wishes it. Kayle. Kayle can bully you down with her E pretty easily. Her E goes over your wall. Her ultimate can also completely counter your ultimate, and her movement speed can make her extremely good at kiting yourself, so it's very difficult. Basically, any bruiser champion or instantaneous cast champion should be avoided quite heavily. Also, start game Yasuo is quite weak to lane bullies and harassment based lane bullies. He can win all-ins versus these people, but most of them are dumb enough to all-in him. Leveling order. There are two main leveling orders, one of which I don't like but will begrudgingly mention. Let's get into it. The first is seen below as we grab our Q first. It's our CS tool, our harassment tool, our all-in early tool. Basically we want it as early as possible. At level 2 we grab our E for its mobility, so we can avoid skill shots, all in our enemy, etc, etc. From here we're going to get our level 4 wall to resist ganks, nullify trades and even harassment. Try and get the wall at level 4 pretty much versus anyone with projectiles. From here we max our Q as it's our main damage tool, and from there we max our E as again it's our main damage tool, mobility tool, and its base utility is pretty strong. Lastly, do level that wall last because its base setup is got at level 1. It does, the only thing upgraded with it is its cooldown and the wall length. That's not enough to put points into, and get your ultimate anytime you can. This setup is very standard and I heavily advise using it. Leveling order number 2, this one is seen below. It's exactly the same except we switch our Q max for our E max. I hate this order. This leveling order goes around the decent E magical burst. So basically your E does magic damage. People are abusing that fact because it does decent-ish harassment damage, and it makes you very mobile of course. If you max it first you can deal a lot of magical damage with your E. It helps push a little bit more. It's a strongish start mid game, but it falls off very heavily. I don't advise getting this setup, and as your E doesn't scale with your AD and it's pretty much wasted. You get no AP, so it's kind of pointless. I personally don't like it. I would rather max that Q for that straight up AD damage, but it is up to yourself. This also means you have to change your playstyle a lot. Personally, I don't advise it. It can work. I'm not saying it can't, but I don't like it. Yasuo's passive, Way of the Wanderer, intent. Yasuo's critical strike chance is doubled, but the damage dealt by his critical strikes is reduced by 10% and 25% on Steel Tempest. Resolve. At maximum flow, the next instance of damage coming from a champion or monster against Yasuo will convert his flow into Absorption Shield. After 1 second, if it is not already depleted, the shield dissipates and Yasuo loses all of his flow. Uses and tips. A note to this is for the first 11 tips, you may want to skip them. It's just a little background information on how all of these abilities work. Number 1, Intent is both an offensive self-buff ability and a critical strike modifier. Number 2, Resolve is a defensive self-buff ability. A note to these is that they are separate functions within this ability. Passively, your Intent is always working, and Resolve also will base upon your flow meter, yet does not affect your Intent. This goes vice versa. Number 3, Yasuo's flow generates 1% of his maximum flow for every 46 units he travels, requiring a total of 4,600 units travelled to maintain maximum flow. Number 4, flow does not decay idly or generate idly. Basically, when sitting in lane doing nothing, this isn't affected, it stays static. Number 5, now a few intent notes. The damage reduction applies to the total damage dealt before damage mitigation. The standard critical strike damage deals 200% and instead is reduced to 180%. And the critical strike with Infinity Edge deals 225% damage instead of 250%, so 10% statically. The reduction is not subtracted to his critical strike damage as statistically. Number 6, another intent note, the 10% damage penalty will not affect any on-hit effects, such as Trinity Force or Blade of the Rune King, with the exception, single exception, of Static Shiv. Number 7, alas, a final note with intent. Critical strike with the Steel Tempest does not affect the 20, 40, 60, 80 or 100 base damage, both for the purposes of the calculation and of the bonus damage, or being reduced by the 10% penalty. Number 8, now a few resolve notes. Any damage dealt to Yasuo when the conditions are met are instead dealt to Resolve Shield. A champion auto attack, ability, and even auto attack from a jungle creep will proc this ability. Avoid damage from these sources if you want to keep the shield. Number 9, a last note for Resolve before we get into the proper tips and tricks. Any damage that is mitigated by the shield appears as a white indicator, so you know how much you've just blocked. For example, if a minus 60 ticks up, you know, and it's in white, you know it's from the shield. Finally, let's get into the meat of this final ability. Number 10, now the literal biggest point of this ability. You should be walking all the time. Literally, never stand still as Yasuo. You want to be constantly charging up this passive. The only time you can stand still is when the passive is up. Basically, anytime that passive's down, you walk, you run, you move. In lane, instead of sitting waiting for CS, run round the CS, run left and right, up, down, up, like diagonally in the air, any way you can. Always walk with this ability. This is the most huge thing. I see people standing still. Any good Yasuo player you've ever seen, I bet you've noticed one thing. They never stopped moving. Constantly move. You're constantly, while moving in lane, even like back and forth, in between getting CS will generate the passive quite heavily. If you're not moving, you're not generating passive, you're not getting that free shield, and you're just wasting that ability. There's no other word for it. So basically, just keep on walking all of the time anytime this passive's down. All of the time. Dragon just procced your passive and you're waiting for a team fight. Walk up and down. Basically, any scenario you can think of, constantly just be moving and never stand in one place for even a second. Number 11, as flow generation is based upon distance travelled, it is also accumulated while dashing with E, because it counts as moving. Displace with the Janna ultimate and Alistair headbutt, because it counts as moving. Also, you can take a Thresh Lantern, and of course, as you're moving with it, it gives you free flow. Even hell, teleport, just on the top of my head, also gives you it. Teleporting to lane actually gives you 100% shield instantaneously. So if you ever teleport mid, bot lane, instantly get the shield from the gank without even having to walk. Basically, anytime you travel, if you're being knocked back, knocked forward, dashing, teleporting, flashing, it will count as travel time and travel distance, and hence will go towards your flow. Number 12, a note from the previous point, your Sweeping Blade adds about 6.78% of resolve with its base movement speed. This means that you'll charge the full bar with 15 dashes. Number 13, now the bread and butter of this ability. This ability is fantastic to nullify harassment. This is a larger point than many other guides have mentioned. Around 70% of your matchups or so will be versus ranged opponents, as it is mid lane. He'll poke the crap out of you with your weak-ish start game if you don't get an all-in. If they play smart and keep the range, they will poke you down pretty severely, so you're going to have to keep this shield up as much as possible to avoid this harassment and burst. This is key in surviving the mid lane and even top lane if you're playing it. Constantly walking, keep the shield up to nullify as much as possible. Number 14, a small point of this ability is its strength to resist burst damage. You can avoid 10% of a champion's burst with the shield, so if you're versus someone with heavy burst, always try to have the shield up and hopefully resist the burst as much as possible. Number 15, as I just mentioned, always try and get the shield up before any real engagement. So if you're about to engage, wait a second, get the shield up, then go in. This again is a more important point than some would think, especially start game when you can nullify a single ability or an auto attack with a shield and give you an edge with an all-in. If you don't have the shield up, you're wasting a free ability that could help you win the trade or all-in. Number 16, this ability can slightly help you a little bit in a more advantageous turret dive. The shield can help you in getting away. It's not a massive point, but it does make a small note. Number 17, now a pretty big point. Most mid laners can't really get the wolves or the birds. You just take too much damage in the new jungle. You just do. Like a Veigar can't go and take can't take the wolves. He'll just get smashed, right? Yasuo is one of the few mid laners and top laners who can run down and get a jungle camp and use his shield to actually not take too much damage overall. Basically, the shield means you won't get too punished health wise for taking jungle camps. So those jungle camps, don't ever be afraid of taking jungle camps on Yasuo. Like with other mid laners, again, this is a bigger point than most people would think. Any good Yasuo player, and I know there's a lot out there, the good farm Yasuo players, they will clear mid lane, rotate round, get the birds, clear mid lane, go back down, get wolves, and it gives them such a huge experience and gold advantage. It can nearly single-handedly win a game if done enough. So just a point, do ask your jungler if they don't mind though, do pick them up. Don't be afraid of getting those jungle camps. Now a very important point, actually pretty core to be fair, don't get over 50% critical strike due to your passive. If you're going over 50% crit chance, you're now wasting a precious gold on a stat that is now redundant. Remember, your passive will double this, so it's 100%, so don't throw away your gold. 50 means 100. Never go over 50%, or when you're close to it, never go over that, ever, because you'll be spending gold on crit chance, which is already basically at 100, so just make sure, hit the C button, or click on your champion portrait with the left click, and it will show up the stats, and it'll show you how much crit chance you've got. Check it before you buy the next item, just to make sure. Now, number 19, a lot of people will just stand still when ignited and hope it ticks off. With Yasuo, run like hell and try and get that shield up to potentially help you survive the tick damage. When ignited on Yasuo, run in a very straight line or in a circle as quick as you can to get that shield. I've literally survived 2 or 3 ignites with this tactic single-handedly. It's a point I just feel I have to mention, because most people when ignited just stand under turret and go, am I gonna survive? And I do it as well, but not on a champion who can run and get a shield. If you run and you get that shield, it will block off the tick damage, or at least some of it, help you survive. So yeah, it's a pretty good point. Yasuo's Q, Steel Tempest. Consecutive successful casts of Steel Tempest, in other words, Steel Tempest that hit a target of some sort within 10 seconds, will form a chain. First active. Yasuo thrusts his sword forward, dealing physical damage to all enemies in a 475 unit line. Second active. Same as the first active. Third active. Yasuo brandishes his sword, dealing physical damage and knocking up all enemies within a 475 unit line, and unleashing a whirlwind that tears forward in an additional 425 units for a total of 900 range. Dealing the same physical damage and knocking up all enemies hit. The active resets the chain. Each time and each cast can critically strike, and on-hit effects will apply for the first enemy hit, excluding the third cast of Whirlwind. Additionally, each cast can be used during Sweeping Blade to change the area of effect to a 375 radius circle around Yasuo. The cooldown and cast time of Steel Tempest is reduced by 1% for every 1.72% of Yasuo's bonus attack speed. Ability range 475. To potential 900. Uses and tips. Number 1, on-hit effects are applied to the first enemy hit, so Lifesteal, Blade of the Ruin King, all proc with this ability. For all its intents and purposes, this ability is a normal auto attack that simply looks cool. Number 2, Spell Shields will block this ability. Number 3, Steel Tempest is unaffected by dodge and blind. Number 4, Steel Tempest is negated by Fiora's parry and Pantheon's block, unfortunately. Number 5, only the third strike is considered to be a projectile for the same Unbreakable and Windwall versus mirror matchups. Number 6, the cooldown of Steel Tempest is unaffected by cooldown reduction and is instead reduced by 1% for every 1.72% of bonus attack speed. This is capped at 66% cooldown reduction with 114 bonus attack speed. At max ranks, the minimal cooldown is 1.33 seconds, basically 1.4 attack speed from that. Number 7, Yasuo's 3.2 attack speed per level is factored into Steel Tempest's cooldown reduction and cast time reduction, which is pretty cool. At level 18, Yasuo has a total of 54% bonus attack speed from leveling alone, which reduces Steel Tempest's cooldown by 31.6%. He only requires 60% attack speed items from items, runes and masteries to reach this cap. Pretty big point, just to make sure you don't overstack another statistic. Steel Tempest cooldown is effectively reduced by 1.86% per level. Number 8, coming off from the previous point, just to emphasize something, as your Q is capped at 60%, do you note that you may consider only grabbing a single attack speed item so you don't ever overcap your Q. Instead, many people stack AD items with a singular attack speed item, normally Static Shiv. Number 9, Way of the Wanderer's critical strike damage penalty with Steel Tempest is 25% instead of 10. This only applies to the AD portion of the damage though. With 100% critical strike damage, the normal base, the damage equates to simply 50% AD, 200% multiplied by 75. With 150% critical damage, base and Infinity Edge, the bonus damage equates to 87.5 AD, 250% multiplied by 0.75. Basically, this is how the crit works. Number 10, critically striking with Steel Tempest is calculated individually for each enemy hit. This means basically if you hit the first enemy and you crit them, you may not hit the second and crit them. The crits don't follow on. Unlike Twitch's ultimate, which if one enemy's hit, the rest will still be crit. It's not like that. Number 11, the third cast will still knock enemies airborne when it strikes them as a point blank area of effect. Number 12, after 333 AD, 267 AD if Yasuo was purchased Infinity Edge, critically striking basic attacks will do more damage than critically striking with Steel Tempest due to the 25% damage penalty, obviously. This is a bigger point I'm going to get into more later. Number 13, try to use Steel Tempest right after a basic auto attack every time. Steel Tempest is not an auto attack reset, but it is a soft reset. You can use your Q in between the animations, which basically means you can squeeze out just a little bit more damage. So basically, auto attack, Q for a soft reset, and auto attack after. It's a lot more of an effective combo than just Qing then auto attacking. Number 14, this ability is fantastic to help push minion waves, especially the third range Q that fires a linear line, pretty standard. Number 15, you can actually stall minion waves with your third Q knockup. The knockup gives you just enough time to stall a wave getting just as far up, or more commonly to stop it going under your turret. The time in the air is precious time that they're not travelling forward. Number 16, the range of this ability should make it your main harassment tool, both with the third Q and your normal Qs, because it is greater range. 475 is greater than 175, which is your auto attack range. Number 17, from the previous point, you can reposition your E to land your Q more easily. Basically, E, reposition, then Q with your linear Q, not the combo. So basically, this will allow you to land a lot more Qs a lot more easily. A lot of people, even vigilant opponents, will never let you land that Q. It only has 475 range. People understand how long that is, and they're just going to keep without that range. Your E can get you deep in beside your enemy to easily Q them and then back off with the E again. Number 18, if you're having trouble landing that third Q, set up this with your E to get into better positioning. Pretty much the same point, but it helps with your range projectile. People generally back way more up when they see that third Q. If you use your E, you can break that distance and more easily land that third Q. Your third Q is so important, you really need that E to bridge that gap. Number 19, to get free Q stacks, this is a huge point. You can Q over the birds in the mid lane or Gromp in the top lane for a free Q stack, or even some HP if you have lifesteal. This is an amazing point, especially mid lane, it's even more effective. As below you will see, I'm queuing the camp, and I'm getting free stacks, so I can go back to lane with the Q. And basically you can even use the blind spot to land the Q. This is amazing. This is free lifesteal. This is free Q stacks with no risk at all. On Gromp you might have to take one hit, but generally in the birds it's completely free. That's why it's more effective mid game. This can help you land that third Q unexpectedly in most enemies. If people see you leave and you just do 2 Qs within 5 seconds and you come back, they're going to be like, whoa, he's got third Q, what? And get smacked in the face with it. Q over the camp and it'll work perfectly. Number 20, even when roaming, you can use the previous point to get free stacks in any jungle camp. When running away, Q over a wall. When roaming, Q over, get the scuttle and run over down to bot lane. Basically, use your Q over any camp wall or anywhere possible just to get Q stacks while running away, rotating, ganking, anything. Number 21, now cool point. Did you know you can use your Q mid-ultimate? Yes, you can. So when ultiming in the air, you can use your Q to do extra damage. This is a small but extremely prominent point. This will increase your burst damage substantially. Like most people just ultimate and smash them into the ground, right? If you ultimate, use your Q and then smash in, it's a lot more damage, especially late game. You want to maximize your damage you provide before your enemy hits the ground. So basically use your Q mid-air to do as much damage as you possibly can. Number 22, Yasuo's Q is actually a displacement. Due to this, you can interrupt dashes with your third Q as it's a knock-up. So basically, if Tristana tries to jump away, if you hit her during that jump, she'll be displaced and have to hit the ground. This is a really cool point versus dash-based champions. Number 23, your third Q, you can use this to set up your ultimate. Now, this is literally the biggest point. Your third Q is your only self-setup of your ultimate that you can have to land. So basically, you've no other knockups beside this third Q, and it's a situational knockup. The love and hate relationship of Yasuo, this is basically it. Your Q is your only chance of landing that ultimate, your only chance by yourself to land that ultimate. This is the main reason why people can't play Yasuo. He's too reliant on that third Q. It's so hard, like in the middle of a team fight, you've been like, I have no Q stacks. I need someone else to knock up for me. And when your team hasn't got knockups, that's it, that's game over. This is the main reason why Yasuo is so hard to play. People don't understand this inherent reason why he's so difficult. His self-setup is useless. Your third Q is your only way to set it up. Now it's good, you can set this up by yourself in lane and the odd time just before a fight, but it's hard to do. So basically this is why with Yasuo you have to pick a composition with knockups to set you up, and so you don't have to rely on this third Q. Number 24, you can easily zone with your third Q. Once it's up, people will get, and we'll see the little bit of air flowing around your champion model, and they're going to try and back off because they don't want to hit that hitting them, and even potentially setting up the ultimate. Number 25, to more easily land your third Q, always try and use middle lane blind spots. Since Yasuo has so few skill shots, people just simply forget that he can use blind spots. People never expect a melee champion to use blind spots to hit things, so basically when you use it for your third Q, people will generally be quite surprised, and it can pick people off, get a free harassment. Basically just try and use it. I do have a blind spot guide on my channel, you can check that out. Number 26, your third Q is your only way to finish off a ranged an opponent from a distance, or even catch a fleeing enemy who's a large distance away, with the exception of your E and lane to dash to minions. But if there's no minions to dash to, your third Q is 900 range. It's your only way of locking down and catching someone up. So basically if you've got it up, try and catch people up. Number 27, the range of this ability is also great to steal Baron and Dragon. This ability does great damage as well, and it's literally your only chance of stealing the camp over the wall, as it's your only long range projectile, so you might as well try it. Number 20, Yasuo is melee range. Due to this, always try and use your normal Qs and of course third Qs more importantly to CS at range and safety. Generally you want to keep that range as much as possible. If you hit them with the tip of your Q, it's 475 range. It's a lot safer than going up and meleeing it with 175 range. During the early game you'll always nearly get a little bit zoned because you are a melee champion. This is your best chance to keep up in CS. And note to this is if you're really getting heavily zoned, run back to the birds, Q over the wall twice, and then you get your third range Q, run back to lane and get those CS at 900 range, which is very safe. Number 29, you can actually use your Q to aggro range jungle camps like Gromps, so they'll attack you, so you may gain vision of them. Hence you'll be able to dash over the wall because you can actually click on them. You can use your W for the same extent, but it's not always up. So basically, you do need vision of camps to dash to them, and you can dash over walls. I'll get more into this later. But your Q can aggro ranged camps, and this means if they attack you, you can get vision of them and E over the wall. Number 30, always be controlling your Q stacks. Always be holding at least one stack or as many stacks as possible. This should always be in your head. How many stacks do I have? How many stacks do I have? How many stacks do I have? When taking a turret, get stacks. Ganking bot lane, get stacks. Get stacks in Scuttle Crab. Waiting for CS in lane, Q to CS for stacks. Basically, always have your as much stacks as possible up because it's your only counter. The only way to set up that ultimate basically is this Q, so you always have to have it up as much as possible. In addition, your range Q is your only chance of realistically at range damaging your opponent and harassing them down, so always try and be controlling these stacks and keep them in mind. Number 31, if you cast your E and Q together, you can turn your abilities into an AoE ability. This is a common combo you can utilize, and I'll now explain some uses for this combo. Number 32, E and Q combo. The first and main use of this ability is to deal AoE based damage. Basically, if your enemies are ever clumped up ever in a team fight or just generally in a gank, use your EQ combo over your static Q linear skill shot. Again, many people just statically decide to go, okay, so I'm going to use my Q every time. Use your EQ combo if they're clumped. It's a very effective way. It's going to do AoE damage. So basically, if they're clumped, use your E and Q combo. Number 33, your E and Q. This basically does AoE damage, so it's your best chance to quickly and effectively finish off jungle camps. The AoE based abilities are nearly always better than their single target counterparts, so if you're ever clearing jungle, use your E and Q combo. Number 34, your E and Q combo. Now a pretty common one. You may also use your E and Q to push minion waves, as it is AoE based. If you cast this in the middle of a wave, you can quickly and very easily deal a lot of damage compared to say Qing it a few times. This is a really good way to AoE down an entire wave, so the front and back line usually clump together. You can deal damage AoE wise to the entire wave. Normal Qs do work, but this can help even more so as you get more fed. Number 35, your E and Q combo again. Now a point that many people don't really mention is your normal Q is a linear skill shot. It can be missed, and quite easily actually if your enemy champion's kind of fast. So you don't want to risk, if you don't want to risk missing this Q and almost indefinitely land your EQ combo. If you hit an EQ, it's AoE. Nobody's going to be able to get out of that AoE range. Whereas with the linear thin skill shot like your Q, they can move to the left and avoid it. This does AoE damage, it can't be missed, so if you really need this to hit and you're about to finish someone off, EQ combo, don't use your Q at max range to try and clip them. They could move left and you could just about miss it. If you hit your E and Q together, you're going to be on top of them, AoEing the entire time, and basically it's going to deal damage 100% and you can't really miss it. Number 36, now a passive point that some people didn't notice, your E and Q combo can also be used to get Q stacks. So when you E and Q, and as long as it hits something, you still get a passive stack. So don't worry about losing anything to E and Q. A player I was talking to thought that EQ combos didn't get you stacks, so he didn't use it ever, which is quite funny. This isn't the case. Number 37, now a point again most people don't mention. If you have your third Q up already, if you cast your EQ combo, you'll create an AoE knockup. This is a bigger point than most people would like you to believe. People generally will avoid the projectile Q and of course go in a straight line. But so you can miss a couple of these. So obviously people always back up. Even if people are clumping, you can still miss half the team. So basically if your enemies are clumped, use your E and Q combo with the third Q, and then you're going to use AoE knockups. People don't ever do this. I've literally seen an ultimate setup with this EQ combo done 3 times ever. I'm pretty serious. This comes with another point from my previous points. It's basically impossible to miss this knockup. So some people will just, have you ever done this? You're running behind someone and you miss the third Q. Like they just walk left with the projectile and it's missed. You know, it's quite easily missed. So basically if you use your E and Q, it's gonna do an AoE knock-up, and people aren't fast enough to leave your AoE area when they're on top of you, which means it's basically 100% knock-up, whereas they could miss the projectile normally. So basically, if you really need to land this knock-up, it's a more assured way than your third Q projectile. So basically, if you definitely want to get a knock-up, use your EQ for a setup, or if they're clumped and you want a big AoE setup. Scrap just didn't forget to put in the final tip, but did it, and render the rest of the guide, did it, and put it in at the very end, did it. Anyway, your Q can be used to check jungle camps and certain, very certain bushes. As your Q, as it hits a target, it will generate a stack of Steel Tempest. Because of this, if no target is hit, no Steel Tempest proc will be made. So, for example, queuing over the blue wall can show if the blue buff is still up. Certain bushes can be checked as well. Very thin bushes shown as below, but it is a nice wee point. Yasuo's W Wind Wall active. Yasuo creates a gust of wind that travels forward to form a wall 400 units away from himself. The wall slowly drifts forward over 3.5 seconds, blocking all enemy projectiles with the exception of turret hits. Ability range 400, wall width 300, 350, 400, 450 and 500. Uses and tips. Number 1, the gust of wind takes around 0.25 seconds to travel forward from Yasuo to form the wall, but will still block projectiles as with the fully formed wall during that time, for a total of 4 seconds as listed in the in-game tooltip. Number 2, the projectile is any entity that it has a velocity and is not classified as a unit, champions, minion, or monster, etc. Basically, if the ability is a projectile, if it has a travel time of any sort, it will be blocked. Number 3, moving units are not blocked under any circumstances, including dash abilities. Champion summoned units such as Orianna's command attack and Maokai's sapling tossed. These are considered to be units until they hit the ground and thus will not interact with Windwall while en route. Number 4, overall Windwall will block an ability if it has any sort of projectile travel time. If it's a instant cast time, so in other words, if it's Annie's W, which is instantaneously, immediately like a maid, and it's not traveling, it just immediately does an AoE or a certain amount of damage in one spot, it will go through it. It won't be blocked in any way. Whereas, for example, her Q, which has a travel time, which actually travels, will get blocked. Number 5, instantaneous targeted abilities like Transfusion or a Braum targeted Time Bomb and persistent area of effect abilities like Tormented Soil do not interact with Windwall in any way, shape or form. Number 6, the wall grants sight over a small area. This means it can be used as a desperate form of bush checking. This can be used to scout over small areas and over certain walls and certain bushes. Number 7, coming on with the previous point, you can also use the W vision to check jungle camps and of course Baron and Dragon. It can go over the wall, so if you want to check if their blue buff's up, use the W over the wall. And it'll also get you vision of it so you can E over the wall, which is another cool point. Or if you want to check of course Baron and Dragon, throw it up, you get vision. Number 8, I'll ask yet another vision tip. Using this to the other side of the wall briefly reveals it, allowing you to dash through a wall to a jungle monster if needed on certain walls. Your E requires vision. This can really help you get the vision through those jungle walls. You're not always going to have a ward, you're not always going to have vision of it, so your W can give you vision over the Gromp camp, for example, and then you can E over the wall. I'll get more into this later. Number 9, Yasuo hates being under turret. To avoid this, you can use your wall to stall minion waves. The wall can't physically stop minions, but it can stop the projectile based backline from damaging you. So basically, do aggro the camp, and then the caster backline and siege potentially will auto attack, but all of their damage will be blocked off a wall. This means you'll get as little damage from possible and only get damage from the melee creeps and not get too punished for stalling the wave. Number 10, Windwall blocks Dragon and Baron auto attacks. Baron has other attacks that are unblockable, but most of them are dodgeable. E helps as well, and you can position it so that you can still attack it from behind. This allows you to easily solo dragons and helps a lot with 2-man barons. Hell, even the normal 4 to 5 man clear with your team, it helps just to nullify some damage. Number 11, you can completely nullify harassment with this ability. Again, Yasuo is very prone to being harassed as he is melee range. You have to, it's absolutely core, use this wall to block all projectile harassment, or at least ones that would be quite cumbersome upon your health. Number 12, now a big point, you can completely ruin your enemy's burst damage. Throw the shield on anytime you see any form of burst coming and you completely nullify it. I've saved so many people from burst just doing this. So basically, if a Veigar tries to pop your carry, throw the wall right in front of him, his ultimate will get blocked, his Q will get blocked. You can't block the W, but hell, he's gonna have to live with it. Number 13, many if not all catch based abilities that facilitate and engage are ranged, nearly always. This means your wall can easily stop a Syndra stun, an Xerath stun, a Morgana binding, or a Thresh hook, a Blitz hook. Basically, these ranged facilitates are generally can be denied by your wall. This can save a carry from being picked, it can save you from being picked, it can save them from trying to engage upon your team. Number 14, one of Yasuo's main tools for resisting jungle ganks, again, is his shield and his mobility, but his shield mostly. Again, much catch based abilities are based off ranged projectiles. Anytime a gank is incoming, save your wall for these projectiles. So if Elise comes up and she tries to cocoon you, wall blocked, you're away. Most people will just back off when they see this wall. It's really that strong at resisting jungle ganks. Number 15, when ganking for yourself, for your team, you may also stop all damage and range CC from stopping you from reaching your target. So basically when you're ganking, throw up the shield to stop them from stopping you. Pretty much everyone, when being aggressed upon in a gank, they forget about the shield. Most Yasuo players gank and just try to use their A to position. You can use your W offensively to stop your enemies from killing you. So basically if you come down bot lane and Janna tries to throw a tornado, W blocked, run down, get them. Number 16, generally you can save enemies, or sorry, more to the point, allies from projectiles. I'll save this to a small point as it does help. Number 17, you can use Windwall to deny your enemy CS. When you're about to last hit, or when your enemy's about to last hit, throw the wall over their creeps at the last second to stop projectiles from getting the CS. This is the most effective way to stop your enemy when you're under turret. So basically, you can block 2 or 3 minions in time if you're correct. This over a long time can easily be used to accumulate a large amount of denied CS towards your enemy, especially blocking siege creeps. So basically, if anyone's trying to CS, make sure you block them. A pretty good point is when they're under turret, throw the W in front of them so they can't count with the turret, and they're going to miss a lot of CS. Basically, W to deny CS if you're feeling confident. Number 18, now your biggest point when it comes to big fights, you can stop AoE based abilities with your wall. You can stop and completely wreck AoE based compositions and just generally big important abilities. Use this to stop any AoE ability that is risking your team. So if a Misfortune ultis, block it all. An Ezreal ultis, block it all. Braum ultis, block it. Anything that is travel time, any big AoE, try and save your wall for that and block it. This can completely destroy champions that rely upon it. Number 19, you can use this ability to catch fleeing enemies. I know this sounds funny, but most people love to kite you with the slow based abilities and stuns, of course. So if you're ever chasing someone and they try and, for example, chasing an Xerath, he throws his E back, block it. Now you're unimpeded with your chase. Throw down that wall anytime you see any ability that might stop you, and when they think they can kite you with it, it's going to be a no-go. Number 20, Yasuo's W is actually God when stopping people from stealing Baron and Dragon with projectiles. So just before the Baron gets low enough to smite, put your wall behind it to block people who are trying to steal it. So I have saved so many Barons with this tactic, it's unbelievable. Same with Braum. We all hate that Nidalee Spear, that Xerath ulti, that Caitlyn Q, etc. Even that Lee Sin Q, which will dissipate when hitting the wall. You can completely counter Baron steals with a little bit of luck. This eliminates that luck by simply blocking it. Luck favors the well prepared, my friends. Number 21, you can also protect another objective with your wall. You can save turrets from being auto-attacked down or being sieged. Simply shield in front of it to block any auto-attacks from attempting to damage down your turret. This is a very good point when under pressure, so if your whole team is defending a turret and you're being sieged and they rush in to try and do as much damage as possible, throw your W in front of the turret, and basically the minions won't be able to damage it and the enemy team won't be able to damage it with auto attacks. This is really good. This can save so many objectives. Just remember to wall it back out immediately after. In mid lane you can also just defend your turret. If they're sieging and just taking it, use your W. So do be careful when a whole team is coming and you're by yourself. Don't try this. Only do it when you're actually in a position to do so. Just a prerequisite for that. Number 22, Yasuo's windmill is great to help taking jungle camp by auto-attacking blocks. So this is basically quite a big point. Jungle hurts a lot, as I mentioned before. The good old days of insta-clearing wraiths in one go is gone. So now you need to get that golden XP, but you really don't want to suffer damage-wise. This ability makes Yasuo one of the few champions who can get the birds and, of course, wolves. Oh, well, not really wolves, they're not projectile based, but without taking too much punishment. In a range jungle camp, you can block, so this really helps Yasuo taking the birds especially without taking too much. Gromp as well, you can take Gromp by using your W to block his attacks. You're not going to take too much punishment for taking these camps, so roast up those birds. I mean, who doesn't like chicken? Number 23, if you play this well, you can stop projectile wave clears from getting to your minions mid and late game when your team is sieging. So this means you can get your team into under the enemy's turret with minions a lot more easily, as it protects those all important pushing minions. So basically this is a huge point, if even slightly ahead. A ton of people don't use this, and it's vital when sieging. Yasuo sucks when sieging without an engage. This actually makes you useful. So basically when your minions are coming up to the turret, you just want to siege, and that Ziggs thinks, I'll throw a few bombs to blow it up. Throw your W, block his wave clear so your turrets actually reach the turret. This is really helpful when sieging objectives. Honestly, I can't emphasize this point enough. Number 24, your W is easily messed up. Use this ability at the correct time. Don't just instantly wall when a fight breaks out. I see a lot of people panicking. Wait until the big projectile animations happen. For example, when versus an Ahri. Just fight normally and wait until you see the E and Q coming. Then wall, and you can block these abilities. Very good players will beat out the wall. So you can stop this bait by simply waiting until the projectile comes. You're going to have to reactionary do it, but it does work a lot more effectively. Don't be one of the Yasuos who just throw up the wall. Try to plan it out. Number 25, due to this being a positional based wall, always try and use this in tight areas and spaces like the barn and dragon pit, and of course most another area, the jungle. Always try and use this ability in tight spaces. It can actually cover up the entire jungle path if you're well. Yasuo's E, Sweeping Blade, active. Yasuo dashes 475 units in the direction of a targeted enemy, dealing magical damage and marking them briefly. The speed of the dash scales with Yasuo's bonus movement speed. Each cast increases the next dash's base damage by 25% for 5 seconds, up to 50% bonus damage. Yasuo cannot use Sweeping Blade on an enemy that has already been marked. Ability range 475. On target cooldown 10, 9, 8, 7 and 6. Uses and tips. Number 1, spell shields will block the damage of this ability. Number 2, Sweeping Blade will generate around 7% of Yasuo's maximum flow innately, as the flow generation is based upon distance travelled. Generally this means you should use this ability as often as possible to proc up that passive. Number 3, the cooldown of Sweeping Blade is unaffected by cooldown reduction. Number 4, uniquely all forms of movement inhibiting crowd controls, airborne, snares, stuns and suppressions will interrupt Sweeping Blade when they hit him, rather than waiting for him to complete the dash like is normally. This is contrary to other dashes which are only interrupted by airborne crowd control effects. Number 5, you cannot dash into an enemy that has already been dashed upon. The circle around the enemy indicates how long the timer is until you can dash upon them again. The more points you put into this ability, the lower the cooldown is that you can dash upon the same target. Number 6, Yasuo can pass through terrain both before and after he hits the target, permitting significant space for him to make the jump. You can get over walls with this ability. This comes with a few potential kips, or not kips, I don't know what a kip is, but I will cover a few tips. Number 7, from the previous point, you can escape over jungle walls by simply casting Sweeping Blade on them if you're close enough. A point is that you really need the vision to do this. You can't cast your E, which is a cast based ability, upon a target you've no vision of, so you can obtain a vision with wards, your W, or your Q to aggro a ranged camp if you're desperate. These are the only things you can do. Number 8, again coming on from the last point, you can go over walls. This also means you can use this to chase enemies over jungle walls. So if someone flashes, say near the blue wall, use your W for vision and E over the wall. Don't waste your flash. Number 9, this ability's damage stacks. Before fights, always try and stack it up to do the maximum amount of damage you can. I feel this is a point many kind of blow off a little bit. If you stack it twice, it's very easy to do, and it means you can go in with an extra 50% damage on it, which of course can be the tilting edge between you getting that kill or dying. Number 10, now a huge point, Yasuo was kind of weak start game versus ranged enemies because of course he's got no range and no way of closing the gap too well early anyway. But if he gets into close range, he is a melee champion, so basically always he will outdo and outdamage a ranged caster. You can beat an enemy very early into level 1 to 3 engagements with this ability. Have you ever watched a high level Yasuo? At level 2 they jump in using minions, break the gap heavily, use their Q, or they might even engage, auto attack, Q auto attack, E on top of their enemy for a potential early kill, or at least put a crap ton of damage on them so they won't want to harass you that much. Basically if you all in early without getting damaged, you will win. If they poke you, they're going to win. So your E is the only chance you've got of getting a hard engage. So engage early to punish those lanes that would rather keep the range. This is a monumental point to get lane control, a free kill, or at least some respect. Number 11, coming on from the previous point, overall use this ability to go through minions to force trades all game. Yasuo kind of sucks at engaging because he has no real hard CC beyond that third Q, which is hard to land. But he has mobility, so utilize this. Number 12, your Q has a low range. To help this, you can use your E to position yourself for a more easily landed Q. This is basically your only chance of landing Q versus any decent opponent. Number 13, coming on from the previous point, you can use Sweeping Blade to reposition that all important third Q. It's honestly too important to miss, so always, for team fights and on lane, position yourself well with your E to get in closer to land that Q a lot more easily. Number 14, now one of the biggest reasons why Yasuo is potentially one of the best playmakers in the game. He can avoid skill shots almost indefinitely. Actually ponder on the fact that he is squishy and he is low range. Most mages with skill shots can burst him down, if and only if they land them. Number 15, this ability is one of your best abilities to resist ganks. You can basically avoid the setup of skill shots, jump through the jungler if you need to, if he blocks off your escape route, and generally jump over walls, dash to about 4 different minions, cutting through the lane. Generally use this to get away from ganks or resist ganks. Number 16, not only can you resist ganks, you may also set them up with this ability. So when going into lane, use their minions to get closer to your gank target. This ability also has another use in regards to this. People like throwing out abilities, slows, stuns, snares, fears, whatever, to generally get in your way when you're ganking them. So you can use this ability to avoid these skills to make it even easier to gank them. So use your E to avoid a Janna tornado into the other minion to get even closer to your enemy. Number 17, you cannot cast your W during your dash. This is a pretty significant point. You cannot stop massive burst damage, big harassment while dashing. If someone is kind of quick enough, they can damage you during that dash, and there's nothing you can do about it. So do be careful sometimes when dashing. Number 18, this ability makes it fantastic for turret diving. You can easily jump in and jump out during turret dives. When turret dives and diving, I push the minion wave so I have another enemy minion to jump to once I reach the turret, so I can dive a lot more easily. Number 19, you can easily push minion waves with this ability due to its low cooldown and base damage. This is a point that should not be underestimated. Generally I Q, E, Q, E, Q, E, and maybe auto attack in between early. So basically this is one of your best chances of pushing minion waves, but I'll get into that later. Number 20, this ability deals magical damage. Most people generally run armor runes versus you. This means they'll be surprised when they get that free magic damage that goes through them. Just a small point. Number 21, the dash of this ability can be great to help catch fleeing enemies. Dashing through minions and enemy champions can make it amazing to catch basically anyone. 22, now the very standard use of your Sweeping Blade is to escape. You can escape through minions, other champions, jungle creeps, etc. Yasuo can jump through everyone and escape through some mental scenarios that most champions would die through. From this point, always try and run through minions waves and use this point correctly. Just E in between people, juke everything, and you should be fine. Number 23, this ability is champion at last hitting under turret. I can't emphasize this enough, you're nearly always pushed under turret, as a lot of mid laners have really good push potential. Using this ability to dash and then auto attack means you should basically never miss a CS under the turret as Yasuo. So E the minion that's about to die and then auto attack it. You should nearly always get it. Number 24, I just wanted to throw out a warning. Ensure you angle this correctly. Don't just cast this ability on whatever target you want without thinking. Ensure you angle your champion model in the correct angle you want to dash upon. I've seen people accidentally dashing into the enemy team. Just make sure this isn't you. Yasuo's R/ultimate, Last Breath, active. Yasuo blinks to the nearest visible airborne enemy champion to his cursor, instantly generating maximum flow. Upon arriving, he suspends all airborne units within a 400 radius of his target in the air for 1 second. Once he lands, Yasuo deals physical damage to all nearby enemy units and gains 50% penetration to bonus armor for 15 seconds. This affects armor from items, buffs, runes, and masteries, but not base. Casting Last Breath will reset the chain of Steel Tempest. Abilities range 1200. Uses and tips. Number 1, Last Breath is an auto-targeted ability that can only be activated if there is an airborne enemy champion near. Your cursor's current position will influence the ability's auto-targeting, although it is not technically used in Quickcast, as having your cursor near a valid target is not required to activate this ability. You do not have to have your cursor over it. If you simply smash the R key tons of times without even your mouse near it, you'll still activate this ability. It's auto-targeted. Number 2, spell shields will block this ability. Number 3, Last Breath will attempt to position Yasuo outside of the range of a nearby enemy turret if he initiates ability on an enemy standing close to one. This does not, however, apply to the Nexus Obelisk. Number 4, Last Breath's damage will benefit from its own bonus penetration. Number 5, bonus armor refers to all sources of armor beyond the target's base armor, and armor per level. Bonus armor refers especially to armor granted through runes, masteries, items, auras, buffs, and champion abilities. Number 6, the bonus armor penetration applies before percentage armor penetration. Using Last Whisper as an example, subtract half of the enemy's armor, then subtract 35% of the total remaining armor. Number 7, when Last Breath is used, the duration of the target being airborne becomes 1 second, regardless of existing airborne duration caused by prior displacement abilities, as well as any additional airborne duration created by a displacement ability during Last Breath's animation. Number 8, for example, if Yasuo uses Last Breath on a target knocked up by Malphite's ultimate force instantaneously the moment they were knocked up, then the target will be airborne just for 1 second, not 1.5 as a result of unstoppable force. So basically, you can actually cut the time of it if you're bad. If Yasuo uses Breath on targeted knocked up by Malphite's unstoppable force the moment they're about to land after the 1.5 seconds, then the duration of the airborne targets totals to 2.5 seconds if you add on an extra. Therefore, this is the most important point, of one of them at least. To maximize the duration of the target being airborne, make sure you cast this ability just before they land on the ground. Don't cast it immediately, as it will actually just waste time. Just before they land, so you can knock them up again technically for 1 extra second. Most newest Yasuo players immediately ultimate rather than waiting for the last second. This is why Yasuo is such good at wombo comboing people. If you can wait until they're just about to land, you can continue on that CC so it never ends for your target. Basically, ultimate last second. Number 9, targets suspended by Last Breath cannot be displaced any further until the ability is complete. Number 10, a note that airborne is a classification of enemy enforced crowd control and not a visual description. Only airborne type crowd control sourced from an allied champion will count for the purposes of Last Breath. Number 11, jumps, including abilities recognized as self-CC, do not classify the unit as being airborne. For example, the bouncing animation, such as Zack's Let's Bounce, do not classify the unit as being airborne, though the enemy he hits with it are knocked airborne and will function with Last Breath. Simply put, you cannot airborne yourself for an enemy Yasuo. Number 12, I have a detailed Yasuo knockup list on my channel. Check it out if you want to know the weird and wonderful abilities that work with this ability and are classified as knockup. You'll be quite interested with a few of them. Number 13, the following abilities are not classified as airborne or specially excluded: Baron Nashor's Sweeping Blow and Fluid Knockup. Valmaw's Grab. This is to ensure these objectives are not overly disadvantageous to any team taking them while versus Yasuo. Could you imagine Baron knocking your whole team up and him ultimating? I mean, that would be crazy. Number 14, the blink is a long range. You can use it as a form of gap closer. This is actually quite a powerful point. Yasuo can sit at the outskirts of a fight at range and safety and use this ability whenever a setup knockup is there for him, meaning he's safe while waiting. Number 15, Yasuo is still targetable and can be killed while using Last Breath. Your flow shield, however, is best used right when the target is about to land from a prior displacement ability. This is a massive point. It's simply put, use this last second to maximize your CC potential, as I previously mentioned. This is a common mistake that regenerates upon cast, allowing you to survive some burst that comes your way. Number 16, Last Breath applies the damage as Yasuo smashes his targets to the ground. If he is killed before the ability is finished, no damage will be applied. So basically, if Yasuo knocks up half of your team and your Veigar bursts them down before they land, no harm will come to them, it'll be perfectly safe. Now let's get into this ability and how amazingly good but ridiculously hard it is to pull off. I'll cover a few main aspects of this ability and how to get the max out of it. This will go into the rants and I'll probably just end up complaining about how people never pick him with a good knockupper. Number 18, the first point, Yasuo has not got an ultimate if he doesn't get an airborne target. He has not got an ultimate. Number 19, while a capable fighter on his own, Yasuo's kit makes him one of the most team-reliant, composition-reliant champions in the league. Yasuo himself has only a situational knockup with his third Q. This to me barely even counts as a good knockup. If your team has no knockup and you have to land that third Q, you're going to have a bad day. If your team doesn't have a knockup and you have to land that third Q, I personally would say do not play Yasuo in this comp. Number 20, in chat, pre-game, actively request or advise good champions with Yasuo. Anyone with AoE knockup will work. Of course, don't force people to play something they can't play, but ask, Are you competent on a good knockup champion? You know, again, go back to my knockup guide on my channel with Yasuo if you want to check up who's good. There's a list there as well. But in pre-chat, just please ask for someone with knockup. Do not play a game with no knockup on your team. Do not do it. Number 20. Well, this ability tends to be baited by many people. This is misplaced. Use this ability at the beginning of any fight and provide a mass amount of armor penetration so you can use it for the entire duration of the fight for its maximum duration. 15 seconds is a crap ton over the whole fight for your Q auto attacks to do more damage. Why have them do less damage without this penetration? You can also do this early. I'm not saying always wait for the last second if like one person is knocked up, but if you get an early 3-man knockup, go nuts, start that penetration early, do as much damage as possible. This opportunity might not come up again. Number 22, coming on from the previous point, some Yasuos will not get Last Whisper. 50% late game of someone's armor means you just don't need Last Whisper. Half their armor is already gone. You can get Last Whisper to ensure you don't have to land the ultimate, but a really good Yasuo with a good setup on his team normally don't get Last Whisper because you don't need it. Number 23, you can easily use this ability to start a team fight with another person's knock up, or of course your third Q. The extra knock-up time can easily leave your team with enough time to catch up and team fight properly. Number 24, you can use this ability in sequence with another person's knock-up to finish off or catch fleeing enemies. Sometimes, you know, you're going to be too far behind to help, so if your Alistair knocks them up, use your ultimate as a gap closer. Number 25, did you know you can Q during your ultimate while in the middle of the air? Again, I've mentioned this, I'm going to go over it one last time. This is a godlike way to ensure you do as much burst damage as you possibly can. Ensure you Q while in the air. It really does help, especially late game. That insane damage Yasuo does, a free Q to a target that can't avoid it, yes please. This is kind of a well-known trick for the most part, but it is a good thing, and I'm making sure everyone does in fact know it. Number 26, Last Breath has a low cooldown, so use it a lot. No need to save your last breath for that big fight. The cooldown will drop to around 20 seconds late game. I'm so free with this ability, I gank top and use it. I go mid, I knock them up just offhandedly with my third Q and use it immediately, because it'll be up in 20 seconds by the time 2 minion waves are done. It has a low cooldown, so get going. Number 27, if you're within melee range and you get a knockup, now this is a huge point. If you're within melee range and you get a knockup, use your Q and auto attack before they land and then ultimate them before they hit the ground. Basically, you want to get as much damage as possible before they hit that ground. Your ultimate will keep them in the air again, so why not get a free shot while they're in the air before throwing them up again. Don't insta ultimate if someone's in the air. So if you're right beside someone, you knock them up, auto attack and Q, and just before they land, ultimate so they're in the air. So they're in the air for as long as possible. Combo pretext. This combo section is pretty important on Yasuo. Windman is 50% caster based and 50% auto attack based for the most part. This means he'll be mixing in between two of them to utilize Yasuo to his maximum extent. Now, a couple of points in Yasuo's casting playstyle. Many casters have varying casting playstyles, which comes in varying forms. An example is Kayle, who has sustained caster style, in which she kind of benefits from long, overextended periods of trades to ensure she gets her E damage off over a long period of time, as she requires to auto attack for a long time to actually get the E to proc. Of course, so that means she's going to want to extend the trade as long as possible, whereas someone like Twisted Fate will double you gold card and Q and back off immediately. In other words, his damage is done immediately, and he's no real sustained damage beyond that, beyond a few auto attacks. So I'll now cover Yasuo's caster style. Yasuo's caster style is burst, sustained. The Yasuo has a split base caster style. First, his burst can come with his Q and his ultimate. This is easily considered a massive burst damage, or even an auto attack Q auto attack combo with 3 quick crits could also even heavily be considered burst. Yasuo with enough crit damage can use his damage to quickly burst down his enemy and back off. Secondly, Yasuo can also be considered to be a sustained caster style. Due to the fact that Yasuo is an AD champion, therefore he can auto attack down his enemies. His Q and a low, which is of course on a low cooldown, can be used multiple times throughout a fight. Hence, Yasuo can also benefit from a sustained fight. Auto attacks and low cooldown Qs means a fight with longevity in it isn't too much of an issue for him. Basically, you decide whether you want the quick throw of your abilities and back off, or fighting and sticking it to your enemy with auto attacks and a low Q cooldown. Before I get into the combo sections, these combos I'm about to mention mostly require you to use minions to E2 to get into position. It's up to you how to do this correctly. Also, the combos always try and have a minion to E out of after these combos. I don't mention it within the combo, but try to have a minion you can E away from after this combo so you can get away and not have any damage dealt towards you, basically. I will also not be mentioning when you should E to your enemy. This is all up to you and whether you can win the trade, and it isn't static. Overall, try and be safe. One last very quick point: the auto attacks in this section in the combos upcoming will be symbolized with Yasuo's passive icon. Let's get into it. Zone combos. Zone combo number 1, W. When Yasuo throws up his wall, people assume something's about to go down. In addition, your enemies will not be able to harm you with projectiles. This alone puts him at a disadvantageous position, which means you're extremely safe to zone your enemy. People don't want to fight around the wall for obvious reasons. Zone combo number 2, E. Your E's mobility and gap closing potential, and of course a very low cooldown with a minion wave nearby, makes it your bread and butter zone tool. Enemies will generally back off when they see you coming in and Eing towards them, or just Eing around the lane in general. People get apprehensive when they see a fast moving target, always moving about the lane. Any low mobility based enemy will also be apprehensive of any engage, even if you're just using your E to just CS. Zone combo number 3, Q3, your third Q basically. When your third Q is up, your enemy will actively see wind flowing around Yasuo's champion model. They know this is only situational. It means now it's your only projectile harassment, which basically means they're going to be on their toes and trying to block it for its entire duration. Harass combos. Harass combo number 1, E auto attack. Yasuo has only one situational projectile and of course a very low auto attack range. To fix this, you can use your E to get into position for a free auto attack on top of your enemy, then E immediately right out of there. Harass combo number 2, E, Q. This is a lot more common combo. You'll be using your E on a nearby minion to position yourself for a closer and more easily landed Q to harass with this longer range. This is your most common and best low cooldown harassment combo. Harass combo number 3, E, auto attack, Q. If you're confident you can win a trade matchup, use your E to position closer to your enemy, auto attack, and use your slight auto attack reset on your Q for more damage, and then E out of there. Harass combo number 4, E, W, auto attack, Q. If you're at risk of going in for a trade and maybe even losing it, you should try and consider this combo. Start with your E to position yourself closer to your enemy, throw up the wall before they can counter burst you or even harass you. From your auto attack, Q reset from behind the wall, and then get your E to get out of there. Harass combo number 5, E, Q3, auto attack. Your third Q is a little harder to land sometimes, so when you use your E, you can position your third Q a lot more easily. Once in the air, they can't really retaliate when they're back, so if you can land this third Q, auto attack once, then back out of there. Harass combo number 6, EQ, auto attack. Again, if you're apprehensive of your Q and ultimate, you may consider pretexting this combo with your W to trap your enemy. From here, ultimate to further lock them down, and then make sure Q easier to land. Once finished, finish off with an E or an auto attack and then just back off. Trade combos. Trade combo number 1, auto attack, Q auto attack. If you get within range for an easy trade, get into your enemy's face, auto attack them, Q for the slight animation reset, and then auto attack after. This will maximize your damage and hopefully win you the trade. Trade combo number 2, EQ, auto attack. If you get within range to E, you can EQ together so your AoE does slight damage, and you can also finish it with an auto attack if you're feeling confident. Trade combo number 3, E, auto attack, Q, W. Begin as always with the positional based E, then auto attack, Q for the slight reset, W in case your enemy tries to counter your trade, and just generally get out of there. Trade combo number 4, E, auto attack, Q, 3, auto attack, W. Your heaviest trade combo begins with your E as always to position yourself. Auto attack, your third Q will still reset and allow you to auto attack once while they're in the air. This is actually a really good combo because if you can land that third Q with the positional E, they'll be in the air, you can get a free auto attack, maybe even another Q before getting out of there. All in combos. All in combo number 1, auto attack, Q, auto attack, auto attack. Begin with your auto attack, Q reset, auto attack, and then after this just keep on auto attacking. All ins are for life or death. This is your number 1 combo very early if anyone's foolish enough to let you within range. All in combo number 2, E, auto attack, Q, auto attack. E to position in, auto attack, Q for the reset, and auto attack. From here follow up with your E if you can win the all in, and then just keep on auto attacking. All in combo number 3, E, W, auto attack, Q, auto attack. Position with your E. W to stop any harassment that might come to your way immediately so you can win the trade. From here, auto attack, Q auto attack, reset, and then just from here, auto attack until they die. All in combo number 4, EQ, W, auto attack. Get into position as normal on top of your enemy with your EQ combo. The AoE damage will damage them. After this, W in front of their projectiles and auto attack them until they die. All in combo number 5, Q3, ultimate, Q, auto attack, E, Q. For your best all in combo, and of course just generally speaking, you're gonna know what's coming with your ultimate. Get the pretext by getting your third Q. You can do this on the wraiths, or sorry, the birds, or your minions, or whatever. From here, if you hit your Q, ultimate immediately. While they're in air, you can Q. Once they land, auto attack and E to chase them, and then Q to hopefully finish them off. Wave clear combos. As a mid laner, it's nearly always your job to clear minion waves quickly and effectively. Unfortunately, Yasuo is crappy with wave clearing. He's not horrible, he's not the worst in the game, but he's definitely not the best. For this section, I want you to know how and why Yasuo also gets static shiv. Yasuo has a lack of proper pushing power, realistically. Static shiv fixes this by providing AoE damage and is procced by your crits very easily because of your passive, which makes it the perfect item, which means a lot of people are picking up static shiv. I'll be covering the combos many Yasuo players use to wave clear, but at the end of the day, he isn't great at wave clearing. I just wanted to prerequisite that. I will only be giving the effective ways of maximizing his okay wave clear so you can do it somewhat effectively. Wave clear combo number 1, Q, auto attack, Q, auto attack, Q3. This combo is one of your most common push combos, so as seen below, run right at the wave while it's in a line, get right in front of it and Q the melee creeps just in front of it so it hits them all. Get as much damage as you can get in the lane. Auto attack while your Q's in cooldown, and by the time they line up, Q again. While they're still in a sort of straight line. Auto attack one more time, they're going to clump up a bit, then run back so they reposition, and then use your third Q to finish off the entire wave. From here, the entire wave should have died. This is your most common lane wave clear combo. Wave clear combo number 2, Q, E, E, Q, E, Q3. If the wave is static and matched with the enemy minions like seen below, or in a line if you don't mind taking some damage, this combo is perfectly viable. Q in the front melee creeps in a line so it hits them all. Use your E twice to cut in between the creeps while your Q is on cooldown. After the Q is up, Q again, E once or twice, once again, and then finally use your third Q to damage the entire wave, finishing them off. Wave clear combo number 3, EQ, E, Q, E, Q3. If you don't mind taking a little bit of damage, this is actually quite an effective combo. Use your EQ combo in the middle of the wave, from here E, Q, E, and finally get in front of the wave for your big Q3 to clear up the entire wave. Okay, now here's a list of all of the combos you've just heard. With mid laners and even top laners, they're pretty important, and on a 50% caster based champion, they're vitally important. It will be in the description for you to download. If it's not, kick my ass so I remember. Laning section. This section will be covered by a conceptual explanation on how to play Yasuo using my stance theory. This was covered in my mid lane guide part 1, again apologies for mentioning it. You should watch it at 1.25 to 1.5 speed if you're a fluent English speaker. Refer to it if you haven't seen it. I will be covering the potential ways you should be playing Yasuo and at what stage of the game you can play him in a varying set of versatile playstyles, depending on how you like to play, and of course who your versus, and of course generally his limitations. Pre-level 6 playstyle number 1, Kill. Yasuo is a melee based champion, and generally this means he can all-in most casters with ease. Melee champions have always been more suited damage wise than their caster based counterparts early game, due to more powerful auto attacks and a greater health pool generally again. If Yasuo can go for an all-in early, he can easily auto attack, EQ an enemy down to 0 HP. Add in Ignite and he can easily play a heavily kill oriented lane versus some of the more weaker laners. Add his passive on top of this, he can usually get away with it. Killing can be a very good option for this guy in lane. Pre-level 6 playstyle number 2, Farm. Versus lane bullies, if you're just a little bit unsure of your lane, Yasuo will nearly always just go for a default farm lane. This means sitting back, grabbing CS and not leaving your lane ever. A note to this is Yasuo is one of the few mid laners and tops you can grab jungle camps to even further improve upon this stance. Farming stance is based upon Yasuo getting as much farm as possible, so you can run up and easily take up wolves and the birds, no problem at all. I generally use this setup versus any mid to difficult matchup I kind of am against. This is the most common matchup you will be doing. So basically overall, pre-level 6 you must choose, do you want to focus on killing or farming? Level 6 plus playstyle number 1, kill. Once you get your level 6, you're quite strong and you get a pretty good power spike. From here you can all in your enemy if you land a knock-up. You can still all in and kill a lot of lanes at this level even without ultimate, so it's very basic, I'm not going to get into it too much. You can all in and kill though. Level 6 playstyle number 2, push and roam. So basically once you get your static shiv you can easily push minion waves and go roaming. This again is a common playstyle as static shiv gives you a far superior pushing power than without it, of course, which can allow you to clear waves so the turret is safe, relatively speaking, and allow you to roam to other lanes. Yasuo is fantastic at roaming due to his mobility and the fact he's got minions to dash to. If you have a lane with a knock-up, he can turn him into a ganking god. This is a very viable playstyle, but generally not so much versus push lanes, who won't let you leave. Level 6 plus playstyle number 3, farm. You can also just hard farm until late game. Some Yasuo players will not even leave their mid lane, they'll just clear a minion wave mid, grab the wolves, go back, clear a minion wave, get the birds, go back, clear a minion wave, rinse and repeat. Late game you're just going to be a monster really, because you're not taking the risk of roaming. You do have this option of just farming like a madman until late game hits, and it's always perfectly viable. Don't feel pressured at all. You remember you are sort of a mid to late game champion, so it's not really too much of an issue. A note is that you can mix up all of these playstyles depending on, of course, on your circumstances, who you're against, your personal preference and just how you want to play, your team's circumstances. These are not static playstyles, they're just possible ways and main orientated ways of playing Yasuo. And that's it for the laning phase. It's up to you to choose your playstyle, what you're best suited for, and of course the playstyle that is best versus your enemy team and laner. Again, this is in How Do I Play Mid Lane Part 1 guide on my channel. I do apologize last time, I do apologize for whoring it out, but honestly, the theory is perfectly explained there, and I can't really explain it here, so I kind of have to, call it out. Teamfight section. Yasuo's teamfight phase is actually very simple. Try and get your triple Q stack before a teamfight. You can Q jungle camps over a wall, just right in front of them. You can Q minions to get stacks, etc, etc. From here, try and land a Q knockup to set yourself up for your ultimate. If you can't, you just have to wait. Yep, that's actually a fact. Yasuo can never be the frontline engager without a knockup. You have to wait for another person to set up your ultimate for you. This is why so many people can't or think they can't play Yasuo. Or, this just isn't a problem. Yasuo has to wait for his ultimate in teamfights. This is how he teamfights. He has to ultimate. That's the only thing he's good for. He's too squishy to run right up unless he's very, very fed. He has trouble setting himself up. This is why if you don't have any setup knockups in the pick phase, do not play Yasuo. Do not first pick Yasuo. You do not know if your whole enemy or ally composition will pick knockups to set you up. It might not be a favourable composition towards you. You might have no knockups and only yourself. Yasuo has so much trouble getting that knockup in teamfights by himself. But if you add an Alistair, a Flash Q, that's a complete 5-man. So basically, do not play him unless your team sets him up. He relies so heavily on an ultimate late game, it's a joke. If your team has no knockups, don't play him. So if your team does have a knockup, wait until they engage if you can't get the engagement yourself. So basically when the engage happens, wait until they nearly hit the ground to get the maximum out of your ultimate and activate it. Use your Q while you're in the air during your ultimate, and once they smash down, use your E to get out of the thick of things. Remember, you are an assassin burster, you will get popped very easily. You're still very squishy, so you have to stay on the outskirts of the fight and only go in when someone is low or a lot of CC or focus has been blown. Stay on the outside, jump in and out using your E consecutively. Keep on using EQ combos, Qs at maximum range, using your E, generally being very mobile, picking when you want to go in. You have to be very patient with Yasuo, staying on the outskirts of the fight, waiting for heavy openings. So basically, for the whole fight, just wait for the wind wall. You might have to use it defensively, you might have to use it offensively. It really does depend. Just basically keep an eye out for the wind wall, and that's pretty much it. If you're winning, use your Q, W, and E to catch up with anyone who's trying to escape or finish them off. If losing, use your W to any engages towards you or your team. Do not be selfish with that wall. And that's it for the teamfight section. Not only is that it for the teamfight section, that's it for the guide. I hope it helped, guys. Remember to like it if you like it, dislike if you dislike it, sub if you like me, or unsub if the video is not up to quality in some cases. You can also share if you think it's good enough. If you know any bad Yasuo players, link it to them, or you can just give it to your friends, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate it. And besides that, guys, have an absolutely amazing day and best of luck in the Rift.